The Chiefs have to go out and get free agents, and they have to make decisions on those lucky ones that are free, but not quite free. We'll talk about them all today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Locked On Chiefs, your team every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen. Check out another show on the network today to get more information. You might find a team that's going to lose a free agent. They might end up coming to Kansas City. And I love talking about the different versions of free agency because there's a lot of misnomers out there. And it creates a lot of different scenarios. So we're going to get deep into the discussion about who should they go after, who should they try to retain, who will they retain today. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, home of the Athletic Matrix that you can pre-order now at rogueapc.com, as well as NFL 33, our Substack for all things NFL and RGR football.
And I'm Chris Clark. Thank you all for listening. And this is where I really start having fun of this part of the offseason, because start talking cap, start talking free agents, start talking money and all of the things that are going to play into that. I mentioned on Thursday's show, Chiefs are currently negative $3.5 million in cap space. They still have 3 more players that they have to add before they even get to the top 51. So that's going to change. They will go more negative. They're going to have to make some moves. We will see what those moves are going to be. There are a lot of different ways that they could go, but we do need to talk about the guys that are probably being overlooked a little bit because Kansas City technically holds their rights, and we will find out where they sit in Kansas City's plans very soon.
Yeah. Now, these are free agents, and yes, they are actually free agents, folks. It's just that they have modifiers to what free agency is for them. Some are restricted and some are exclusive rights. They're all free agents, meaning their contracts are up. But what happens next is still in the hands of the Chiefs to make a decision upon. And the differences are pretty stark, Chris, in what their availability really is.
Yep. They have 2 guys that are exclusive rights free agents. This means that no other team can offer them any kind of contract right now. Exclusive rights free agents are guys that have less than 3 seasons accrued in the NFL. So that is what these players have. We're talking Jody Fortson and Shane Buechele. I believe both of them are going to be back in Kansas City in 2023. We'll see what they are offered. But it is a set offer, and I got to find that number, but it is a set number that they're doing right now for exclusive rights free agents.
Yeah, and it is an offer. They either take it or leave it from the Chiefs, right? And then they could possibly, if they decline that, they could eventually talk to another team. Is that the way that works?
No, they don't have the ability to talk to another team. They're pretty much, they have to sign the contract.
Unless the Chiefs release them from it. Is that how that works?
Correct.
Okay. That's the part that always throws me, because yes, they are free agent, meaning their contract currently is up, but they don't have that kind of wherever I may roam kind of mentality. Now, the restricted guys are a little bit different. That is Darius Harris, Tommy Townsend, Tershawn Wharton, and Prince Tega. I don't know if all those guys are back. I think several of them are, but I won't say everyone. But that also comes down to what kind of offer you can receive.
It does, and I do think that you're looking at a bunch of guys that are probably going to be back. I think that most of them probably will. Darius Harris was the guy that they signed off the street. They didn't sign him to they didn't keep him as an ERFA or an exclusive rights free agent last year, which is what he would have been. They signed him after the fact and brought him back. Tershawn Wharton is the guy that's a restricted free agent. I do think that he's going to be back. Prince is a question mark. He's a backup. They know more about him than we do because they've seen him play in practice. He hasn't been playing on the field, so we haven't seen anything since training camp or really preseason games, I guess. So that's going to be something. I guess he got a couple of snaps throughout the season with backups, but we'll see on him. The interesting one that is a restricted free agent to me is Tommy Townsend. And I'm curious as to see what Kansas City does with him this offseason.
Yeah, I kind of am too. And just one more note on Prince. He did play a good group of snaps against Jacksonville the first time in the regular season, 38 snaps, 60 on the season. So if we're really keyed up, we can go back and watch the Jacksonville tape the first time and see what was out there. But Tommy's the big question. Now, there's the fan base would have him back in an instant. There's the organization on the interior, the leadership that I think might have a question. I think the staff and the team are probably sold on him, and I think I am too.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. I think that he is definitely going to be a guy that is going to be back for the Chiefs. It's just going to be a question of whether or not they tender him or they get him signed to a contract, because they can sign him to an extension. He has played a restricted free agent, has got 3 years accrued in the NFL. That is the difference between them and an exclusive free agent. An unrestricted free agent is somebody that has 4 years in the NFL. So that's the difference between them and a restricted free agent. And it looks like Over the Cap is projecting that a first-round tender will be worth $6 million. A second-round tender is worth 4.3, and a right of first refusal is 2.6. And right of first refusal just means that you get a draft pick in the round that he was drafted in, I think.
Which for Fortson actually not.
Well, Fortson isn't there, but Townsend was an undrafted free agent, so they would not get anything.
Correct.
So we'll see. Sorry, there isn't any draft pick compensation on that. So they're not going to go with a non-restricted, I guarantee you.
Yeah.
It'll either be a second or a first-round pick. If they stay to that, the smarter money, at least in my opinion, is that they're probably going to sign him to a long-term contract extension, because why wouldn't you? He was a Pro Bowler. He was one of your team captains.
There are people going to say laces out and he's Bucker's problem.
And I agree that there are people that are going to say that, but the team's really the only one that really knows that. So
yeah,
if
agreed.
And the other side of that, and here's really where I'm coming from on that, is it's the team's decision for him to be the holder.
True.
So if they are not happy with his holding, I don't think you can argue that it's worth letting him go so you can bring in another punter that can hold for you, because you're not going to get a guy like Townsend that's able to boom the ball like he was this year. He was phenomenal this year kicking.
Yeah. Doing his primary job, yes. He was impressive. Yeah. You can't replace that very easily. I agree with you. I do expect to get a contract done. But not everybody gets a contract. There's a lot of guys that are out there are going to be unrestricted free agents from other teams. Who do the Chiefs need to go find? We're going to get into some of our favorites right after this, because our friends at Built Bar have done a great job creating delicious treats that don't give you all the fat and calories. And you got to try those Built Bars. They've got them for holiday specials. They've got like weird things that they cook up, like unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almonds. Some of my favorites here are toffee almond. You got to find that one when it comes back out. And I don't know how they do it, but they do. It's 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 17 grams of protein on average. You got to check them out. They're a great snack. They're a great get you through the afternoon workday kind of deal. And they're great if you are in serious training and you need that extra protein boost. Right now, you can get them at Walmart today, too. You can walk over to the pharmacy section and find them, and you can get a 4-bar box of cookies and cream or double chocolate or coconut puffs or whatever you're into. And Sam's Club has a special 13-bar box. You can hit the favorites like brownie batter and churro, and maybe some of those toffee almonds that I really love. You got to check them out over at Built.com. Our friends, they're going to make you happy. What would make me happy is getting cheap free agents. I'm not here, like I'm not buying like the restored 68 Camaros, like that's not what I'm here for. I'm here for like the granny that parked like, the F-250 in the garage and never drove it. Like that's what I'm looking for, bargains that still got tons of miles on them. That's where I'm at.
There are going to be a lot of guys that are going to fit that mold. And really quick, the bigger positions right now that are out there for Kansas City that do not have players right now, they don't have a left tackle. Obviously, you think they're going to franchise tag, Orlando Brown. Wide receiver, Juju's a free agent. Carlos Dunlap's a free agent. Andrew Wiley's a free agent. A lot of guys along the interior of the defensive line, Noddy and Brandon Williams. Nicole Hardman's a free agent. Mike Burton's a free agent. What if they bring back a fullback?
Oh, they'll bring him back. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I know. I just had to give you a hard time. Justin Watson's a free agent. And then Deion Bush, Juan Thornhill are another couple of guys. Colin Saunders, like we kind of talked about. And then you start getting into the restricted free agents and the exclusive rights free agents. But those are really the positions you need to think about, when you're looking at the free agent class. And don't get me wrong, they could look at other positions as well if they think that they can get an upgrade. But you're coming from a Super Bowl roster. I don't know how much of an upgrade you're going to find without spending a ton of money at a lot of the other positions where they already have players in place.
Agreed. Let's break it down. Let's be truthful. The left tackle class isn't great. It's Orlando or a draft pick. I think that's the way it's got to come out. Do you disagree?
Yep. No. And quite frankly, I would go with the fact that maybe it's Orlando and a draft pick.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't think that's too far-fetched at all. Now,
because they still have right tackle too. So
right, and that's exactly where I was going. On the other side, it's a completely different story in my mind. I do think someone's going to give Andrew Wiley a pretty hefty contract. It is his last one, and I won't blame him. He's 29 now, going to be 30 by the end of next season. I can't blame him for being like this. Listen, I've come here, I've accomplished, I've redeemed myself from Tampa Bay Super Bowl. I've got 2 rings now. I got to get a last payday that's going to set me up for the rest of my post-football career. I will not blame him at all if he goes elsewhere. I do think he will have that opportunity. So let's go ahead.
To be clear on Wiley, I just want to say I misspoke a little bit talking about his contract. He got $2.4 million almost in 2022, but it only counted against the cap for 1.2. So he basically got double the money because he was in Kansas City. He's going to get more than what he got paid last year.
Yeah,
he's going to get more than $2.5 million a year. Right? I would think he's at least at $6 or $7 million a year. Would be my guess.
I can't argue that. So,
and that's cheap. That's cheap for a right tackle starter if that's where you're going to play him.
I was just going to say that gets into the argument. If he's going to get that, that's still a pretty good value. So, like, would the Chiefs want to match that? It is certainly a possibility. It just feels like any player at that age that has a chance to make money, I'm not sure they're going to match. So let's play this scenario as though Andrew Wiley has gotten a great contract. We're happy for him, but he has left the building. So when you look at this group, I find it kind of interesting how many different types of players there are. There's some that the Chiefs have already had on their roster. Cam Irving's going to be out there again. They're old. Old's probably not the greatest term. One is really old. Riley Reif, I don't know if the Bears will not bring him back. I guarantee you that. He's 35 years old. I don't know that he's going to get another contract. I would not go near him for the Kansas City Chiefs. I'll tell you that. I've heard people ask about Mike McGlinchey, who's 28. I'm not going Mike's direction either because I don't think there's that agility left in his game. There was very little of it even when he came into the league. So I'm not going there. Kelvin Beachum, same thing, 34. The guys that stand out to me, have you looked at this list yet, or should I just throw you some names?
I'm looking at the list as we speak. So
okay. Who's the first guy who stands out to you? Okay. First guy who stands out to me is probably the guy at the top of my list for this, and he is probably going to be in that 6, 7-ish, 8, maybe even a little bit more. I think there's more left in Isaiah Wynn's game than we've seen so much. He is also 28, so there is an issue. There is some injury there as well, but I think for a 3-year contract, I think I might be looking in his direction out at right. Obviously not a left tackle. I know they've tried him there, but I like him at right.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that. And when I start looking at the right tackle position, I am going to be trying to find a guy that you can slide in there that's going to be one of the younger guys. If you're going to go free agency, if you're not going to go free agency, you're looking at, drafting obviously somebody that's 21, 22 years old, maybe 23. Right. But I think that's the direction that they need to be looking at going. I wouldn't mind a guy like Jawan Taylor, but it's going to be extremely expensive. So you are going to have to invest, and that is probably only a scenario that would happen if Kansas City does not get a deal done with Orlando Brown and they don't franchise tag him, which isn't going to happen. So because right now you've already got all this money tied up in Joe Thuney. You've got a lot of money tied up in, Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones and Frank Clark. And we've talked about all that, but you're going to have to figure it out somewhere. So I don't think right tackle is a position they do it at. And quite frankly, I think that they're probably going to be looking in the draft for somebody. And some people out there will also say that, that's Lucas Niang's job to lose. Mm-hmm. If they go into the season with just Lucas Niang as their right tackle, I think that that's a lost season. And I say that because I don't think you can trust that he's going to be healthy for an entire season.
That's the risk that you run. And so I think that does take us back to a draft pick. I agree with you. A couple of crazy off the wall options. Caleb McGarry is also 28 years old. Might take a look at him. I think the Falcons are going to be done with him. I don't know that he goes back there. If you get really desperate, you're losing options. Like I said, there's several guys that have already played for this organization on this list. So it is a little bit more plentiful at right, but not a ton. And so that brings us to the marquee, and we got to get into the defense, right?
Yeah, but what about a guy like Eric Fisher?
I'm fine with that. I think that he recovered from the Achilles. I think he probably, because of the way he played and his makeup being a more athletic tackle, I think he has a better chance to recover there. I just don't know, because he's had so little interest, if it's really there and the desire is really to play.
Yep, that'll be a question. But I could see him, I mean, if he would be willing to go anywhere and play right tackle, I would think that he would consider it for Kansas City. Because I think he truly loved being here and would want to come back. And I think Kansas City can make that happen. A lot of questions, though, when you start looking at some of the other positions.
Yes, absolutely. And there's some marquee ones, particularly edge and wide receiver. We're going to get thoughts on that here in a second.
But I want to tell you about our friends over at Ultimate Football GM. You guys need to check this game out. It is phenomenal. I really enjoyed playing it because you get a chance to actually act like a GM. You get to pick your draft picks. You get to pick your free agents. You get to pick your coaches, your coordinators, and on down the line. Ultimate Football GM is a fantastic game, and I really enjoyed playing it. I took third place in the Locked On Hosts League. That was a lot of fun. Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers took first. If you want to compete, this is your time to do it. With Ultimate Football GM, you're responsible for controlling the destiny of your franchise by hiring the right coaches, trading players, navigating your franchise through free agency and the draft, and all the ups and downs of a season. You also have to worry about salary cap, so that does play into it. And it is a very realistic game in that aspect. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. We've created the Locked On League for you to compete against Locked On fans all over the world. Can you be the ultimate Locked On Football GM? Choose the Locked On League, all in caps, to join. Locked On Chiefs listeners get a free 100% boost to their franchise when using promo code Locked On in all caps in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps. So make sure you check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. And Ryan would like to keep talking, but he's muted.
I would love to. Sometimes I have to do that. We're not going to go through every position because that'll take us forever. But we are going to go through the big one. The big one is right now there are two. I want to hit the offensive one before we get to the defensive end. So I'm going to throw you some names at wide receiver, and you tell me what you like, and we'll go from there. Because the Chiefs do have 3 free agent, unrestricted wide receivers in Juju Smith-Schuster, Justin Watson, and McCole Hardman. So first off, who comes back? Not who do you want back, but who comes back?
I know what we talked about with McCole. I don't think he's back in Kansas City. I think that I think he's going to be a free agent just because with his speed, I think that a lot of teams look at that and say, we can turn that into something.
Yep.
Okay. I don't think he's back. Justin Watson, I could see back. He played decently enough for Kansas City to come back. Juju, it's going to be up to him. Does he want to be here? Yeah. And if Juju doesn't want to be here, then I think and here's the other big question. When we start talking about making moves at wide receiver, MBS is still a question mark. He's got a almost $6.5 million bonus due, I think, the third day of the league year. So that's going to be something to watch for Kansas City. If they decide to go a different direction, we'll know very soon, because it's guaranteed if he is still here that he gets that bonus. And I'm trying to look at the date on that specifically. Third day of the 2023 league year. So it is March 18th.
Yeah, it's coming up quick. Okay, so with all that said, let's take a look at who's available. Who are free agents or have had their contracts voided and are going to be available? You tell me what you like. 30-year-old, always broken Michael Thomas, formerly of the Saints. DJ Chark, now the Lions, but a guy who's moved around a little bit, still has some juice, I think. Marvin Jones from the Jaguars. Al Lazard, Packers. Jacoby Myers, Patriots. You can get down. That's like the top tier to me. You can get down to some other question marks, but of those guys, who stands out to you?
What about Byron Pringle? Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Like I said,
saw
of
him on
those
the
guys,
list.
who stands out to you?
Yeah, no, I know. I think Jacoby Myers is going to be an interesting one. I will be curious to see if he is brought back by the Patriots this year. Quite frankly, Robert Woods just got released. I don't think I would go that direction either. Michael Thomas is intriguing. He hasn't played much in 2 years. The question is his medical?
Yeah.
And if you can bring him in for an incinerated deal like you did with Juju Smith-Schuster, what's the harm?
That's fair. I don't think there's any way he would take the contract that Juju took, and it would have to be that low of a contract for me.
Well, and maybe he wouldn't, but considering he hasn't played for 2 years, does he want to go win a Super Bowl? Does he want a chance to go win a Super Bowl?
That's a great question.
He doesn't have a lot of tread on the tires. So my question with him would be, if you want to come back and you want to play for a Super Bowl, you could have a chance to go play for a Super Bowl with the Chiefs and maybe show that you still have gas in the tank and maybe get another deal next offseason. I just don't know what the market's going to be for him.
Yeah, I think there's going to be almost none, at least from the Chiefs, because I think that's a risk that you can't really afford to take.
Not if you're having to give him a lot of money. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I like what you said about Myers. I do think he is a guy that I would be focused on. He's going to get paid, but I would take a look at him. I would take a look at Chark. I'm trying to stay away from the 28, 30-year-olds. So Lazard's out for me. Pringle's out for me. Jones is out for me. Jones is out for me. Like, did you realize that Marvin Jones and Julio Jones are only a year different in age? I did not. Threw me off.
What about a guy like Paris Campbell?
It's funny. Paris Campbell never lived up to his billing. I actually had him as a very tight eval to Terry McLaurin, and I had Terry behind him by, I think, 3 or 4 spots on the draft board. And Terry's way outperformed him. Is there something left? I don't know, but maybe that's worth exploring in a tryout kind of thing.
Kind of seems like a Chiefs type of move.
Yeah, absolutely.
Darius Slayton's out there. I'm just looking at some of the younger guys. N'Keal Harry is out there. And I'm not saying you got to go give him a big deal. I'm just saying that these guys are the younger guys that at least have name value.
Yeah. And because no one's sticking out and because he's made a couple big plays, I think this plays in the favor of Justin Watson returning.
Yep. And because I think that he trusts Mahomes. Mahomes trusts him.
Yeah. Now, we're going to do Mock Draft Monday next week. We need to talk more in depth about the defensive side, but I just want, top of your head, one player that you think these Chiefs need to go after on the defensive side. And then next week, folks, we'll circle back to the free agents in the entirety on the defense.
Man, I don't know. Davenport was an interesting one that you mentioned. Arden Key, Charles Omenihu. I'm sure I'm butchering that name. There are not a lot of guys that you really look at this list and go, that would be somebody that I'd like to go pay. And you're going to have to likely pay somebody.
Yeah, that's
a lot of money as defensive end.
The 2 guys that I like are too old for me to actually go get. One being Jordan Poyer from the Bills. I like his game. I think he's still decent, but the end is coming. So I can't go pay him.
You're talking defense in total. I was just looking at edge.
Oh, okay. Well, then in that case, I agree with you. Like, it's Ngakoue for me. I could take a look at some other guys as role players, but like, there's a lot of guys that have already been on this roster as well. Justin Houston's out there. Ingram's out there. Davenport, Carlos. I don't know. Tyquan Lewis might bring something. I don't know. There just isn't a whole lot in the free agent market that makes me think that that's an upgrade. So again, we're back to the left tackle talk. This has got to be a draft pick.
Yeah. Well, interior defensive line, Tristan Hill, maybe. That's one person that would intrigue me.
Okay. All right.
I said intrigue me. I didn't say that. I think he's going to get paid. We'll have to see what he ends up getting as a contract offer. But of all the people, that would be the one name that I see on this list for interior defensive line. Because the other part of that is I don't think you're going to be looking at linebackers. I think you're pretty set at that position. I don't think you're going to look at that position. Maybe you look at safeties, but again, if you're going to look at safeties, why aren't you bringing back a guy like Juan Thornhill?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know Jesse Bates is a pipe dream. He's also 27 years old.
He's 26.
Is he 26? Okay. I don't think there's any way he leaves Cincinnati, and I know people have already asked me on Twitter for that, so I just want to throw that one out there. But we're going to take a look at the defense in more depth in the free agency. I think there's also going to be a couple of releases. They're going to make some noise here too, so we're going to come back to that next week. It is going to be Mock Draft Monday. I hope you guys are prepared for that. We're kind of excited about the way that the offseason is ready to go. It's a shortened offseason because they won the Super Bowl. So let's enjoy that. I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. I hope you do as well, Chris. We're going to have a good time. Be here for Mock Draft Monday. Thanks for listening today. We'll check you next time.